Good, thank you. Okay, well, welcome everyone to the May meeting of the Environmental Quality Board. My name is Nancy Dobbin, and I am the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Transportation and honored to be the chair of the EQB. So thanks everybody for joining. Really glad to have a room full of in-person board members today. So thanks for joining. And for those out there joining us online, we might have one or two, but at this point, we will go ahead and Executive Director Catherine Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Commissioner Arnold. I know she said she might be a little bit late, so hopefully you'll have her here. Board Member Bakken.
Present.
Board Member Bauerkemper.
Here.
Board Member Brands.
Present.
All right. Commissioner Cunningham is not with us. Myra, you're here.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Chair Dobbenberger.
Here.
Commissioner Gronball.
Present.
Board Member Hintz. Don't think Riley was able to join us today. Chair Holman.
Here.
Board Member Katzenberger. Commissioner Kessler. Yep, she just notified us she had to go to a meeting, so she is not with us. Board Member Martin.
Yes. Hi.
Commissioner Verlick. I didn't think you would be able to join us. Board Member Nelson.
Present.
Excellent. Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Excellent. Board Member Smith. Here. And Commissioner Stroman, I think also just had to go to the same meeting. And then we don't have Chair Zelli, but we have Peter Lindstrom from Met Council. All right, so Chair, we have 11. Our quorum is 9. It should be set.
Thank you. So then the next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which are the meeting minutes from the April 16, 2025 meeting, and that is back at page 5. And the preliminary agenda for today's May 21st, 2025 QB meeting, and that's on packet page 3. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, Board Member Nelson. Have a second.
Second, Holman.
Thank you. Holman. Any discussion? So with that, would you please call the roll on the consent agenda?
Yeah, so on adoption of the consent agenda, Commissioner Arnold, not present. Board Member Bakken.
Approve.
Board Member Bauerkemper.
Yes.
Board Member Brands.
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham is not with us. Chair Dobbenberger.
Yes.
Commissioner Groundball.
Yes.
Board Member Hintz. This Chair Holman.
Aye.
Board Member Katzenberger.
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler. Board Member Martin.
Yes.
Commissioner Verlick. Board Member Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson.
Aye.
Board Member Smith.
Aye.
And Commissioner Stroman. Not with us. That's 11 yes and no no's.
Great. Okay. So the motion carries and the minutes and the agenda are adopted. So at this point, I will then turn it over to Executive Director's report.
Hey, well, thanks everybody. It's nice to see you. Nice. Thanks to those of you who are able to join us for lunch and just some informal chatting. It was that was lovely. It was good to have you. And I'm glad we're here. And it doesn't matter that we're in the basement today since it's so gray outside, but we need the rain like we were talking about over here. Just logistics. If you're online, the meeting chat is there for you. It's open and visible. We don't keep it as part of the chat though. So please, or we don't keep the chat as part of the meeting records. Please only use it for logistical issues, such as if you can't hear us or if you want to make a comment. Board members, we're gonna have a bunch of presentations and we always welcome your questions and feedback. And then after our break, we are gonna have a more interactive portion for those of you that are here, and we'll be working to make sure that those out in the world can see what's going on too that's why there's Post-its on the wall. So be ready for that. During the discussions, please jump in and ask your questions. There are going to be multiple opportunities for public comment today. related to the climate calculator, the groundwater policy report, and the bylaws, and then we'll have our usual general time. We do have a pretty full agenda, so if comments can be fairly brief, that would be appreciated. When we get to the public comment part of the agenda, you can use, if you're not here in person, you can use the raise hand button, and or we can, you can put your name in the chat and indicate that you want to comment. And the comment procedures are in the packet. All right, so that's logistics. Moving on to the director's report. As mentioned in previous meetings, MPCA has been following up on comments on greenhouse gas emissions. I just wanted to note that the legislature assigned the state's greenhouse gas emission inventory to the MPCA and to Commerce. But as the topic has been brought up here in the past, we were asked to provide you some more information on that follow-up, and Commissioner Kessler asked that we included a few things in your packet. So that's the materials that are in the end of your packet starting around page 40. We are planning to get the board an update on the state's revision to the climate action framework this fall. It's looking like it's likely to be September. Often we would have an ARIS meeting in September, but we may end up having a full board meeting that month. So, or we will get some updates on the modeling that's been discussed and the climate framework. In terms of legislative updates, the session did not end on Monday, and several of our folks are not joining us due to need to be in some of those conversations. So I don't have any updates. We'll see what happens this week or next week or whatnot. There are some things that could still pop up that would have directions to EQB and impact our work plan for next year. So as we go through the work plan in June and August, we'll talk about that. Project updates, you'll hear a bunch today. Our biggest one, the climate calculator that we've been working on, that's wrapping up. And then I also want to mention that the team held an Environmental Review 101 training that was a really huge success. We had 292 people sign up and almost 200 attend. And all the stats showed that they stayed for the whole meeting. So there was a presentation and the questions and answers. So big thanks to the ER team for doing that. Presenting, organizing it. The comments we got were very complimentary and people found it very useful. So something we'll be looking to continue to do over time. Our next sort of big tranche of training will be on the climate calculator over the next few months. I think Steph will say more about that, and then we'll be looking at other trainings. I think the folks were asked what else they would be interested in, so we have those tools to go on too. So that's like one of our biggest projects that we've been working on. And then I will just note for the plan at the moment is for ARIS to meet in June, and then for us not to have a meeting in July, take a summer break. But our August meeting likely will be just jam-packed of good things. So probably several decision items are likely in August. So just for folks' planning schedule, that's what we're looking at. And I think that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Executive Director Nuschler. Does anyone have any questions on the Executive Director report? Not seeing any. I might just note too on the legislative updates. We're still working on the transportation bill, and so I'm also, as Executive Director Nuschler mentioned, missing some commissioners today with work going on. I might have to duck out at short notice, and board member Martin, our vice chair, said that he would be willing to jump in and chair for me at that point. So just a FYI that might occur here. So yeah, hoping for good things here, good work to be done over the next few days. Or like you said, weeks, but let's hope that goes there. Yeah, all right. Well, so we will move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is the final greenhouse gas calculator. And so our presenter is Stephanie Aho, and she's the greenhouse gas analyst for EQB. Welcome, Steph, and I'm looking forward to hearing the final update.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the board members that are here today and online. I am very excited to bring you the final update for the climate calculator. I am, as the chair said, Steph Aho. I'm the greenhouse gas data analyst here at the EQB staff, and I have been the project manager for this project for the past 14 months. There we go. Always a trial at first. So today I'm going to give a bit of a background on the why of the calculator, why are we doing it, and then what we were able to achieve. I'm going to talk about the team and timeline that we were working with, and then the draft calculator that came out in March, and I talked to Eris about that draft calculator. We had an input review period for 5 weeks from March to April, and so I'll give you a little overview of that. And then looking forward to the next month, as we finish up the contract, we have deliverables that we're still working on, and we're planning some training opportunities. And there's been a lot of interest in those. And then finally, we'll look a little bit further into the future as we have the implementation and rollout plan. We're still looking for opportunities to add to that implementation and rollout and get the word out about the calculator. And then we'll finish up with some discussion time. So this all started when the climate items were added to the EAW, the Environmental Assessment Worksheet, in December of 2022. And after those additions, RGUs came to the EQB and told us that they needed a reliable, user-friendly way to address these revisions to the form. And specifically, their greenhouse gas emissions were a challenging ask. So in 2023, the EQB received some legislative funding to address these concerns and support the new EAW climate items through the climate calculator. As we have been constructing the calculator, we have also been mindful of the criteria for the environmental review program effectiveness, and those were determined in the continuous improvement process. And I've listed the 6 most applicable criteria here that we really feel like the calculator has added positively to all of these criteria listed. So we have scientific integrity, measurability, user friendliness, consistency, quality assurance, and accountability. And all of those are pretty lofty goals, but I am excited to say that we have achieved them. The climate calculator is now a vetted free option for people to use to address those climate items that were added to the EAW. And when I'm talking about the climate items, they're the ones listed here. Item 7, which is the climate adaptation question that asks about qualitative climate adaptation. And then item 18, which asks more quantitative questions about greenhouse gas emissions and mitigation. The climate calculator does the work of many previous tools by putting most of that previous work into one Minnesota focused tool. So people can go to this one location and work through their EAW climate questions without having to go to a bunch of tools and feed those answers into further tools. It really simplifies the process. And the whole time we've been working on it, we've been trying to adhere to efficient, effective, and consistent as our motto. And I think that we really got there. It has made this process much more efficient, effective, and consistent as we are talking to people. Those are some of the feedback words that we are hearing. So when we scoped this project last, let's see, September was the end of the scoping process. The scope that we had was a very ambitious scope. And I'm happy to say here that we also were able to achieve that scope that we had set out in September 2024. The climate calculator covers most mandatory categories. There are a few exceptions for categories like road projects in MnDOT that have the MICE tool. So if there's another similar tool that does what the calculator does, we did not include that mandatory category, but most of the mandatory categories are in this calculator. The calculator accounts for the construction and operation phases of a project's lifetime. We hope that we are able to add the decommissioning phase in a future update. But for now, construction operation do make up a majority of the greenhouse gas emissions from a majority of projects. The calculator covers indirect and direct emissions, as well as upstream and downstream emissions. So outside of the borders of Minnesota, if your project creates greenhouse gases anywhere, not just within Minnesota, those emission factors and emission sources are included. The calculator includes a lot of adjustable project inputs and default values. So it's really adaptable to whatever information a user brings to the calculator. If they have a lot of specific information about their project and they want to make adjustments to better reflect what they think their greenhouse gas emissions are, they're able to do that through those adjustable project inputs. If a user comes to the calculator maybe missing small portions of the data the calculator is asking for, the default options are a great way for them to fill in those missing ones. The calculator does provide qualitative mitigation options. The astute viewers will notice that the question or the EAW item 18 asks for quantitative mitigation. But at this point, this is a great jumping off point for people to go do that mitigation, exploration, and quantitative analysis themselves. And again, that's something that's a priority for us in the future as we look to expand the calculator. And then finally, the calculator provides information for that qualitative climate resiliency from item 7. The calculator has 6 climate threats that are anticipated for Minnesota in the future, and allows the user to select one or all or somewhere in between of those threats and part of their project that they're interested in the resiliency of, and out pops a bunch of adaptation options for them to put into their EAW worksheet. So we weren't sure if we were going to be able to add this item 7 qualitative climate resiliency portion, but it ended up fitting right in there and fitting into the work and resources that we had. So we're pretty excited about that. None of this would have been possible, meeting any of these goals would not have been possible without the climate calculator team. And our team was made up of the Environmental Quality Board, all of you giving feedback, the staff working hard behind the scenes. ICF, our contractor, was great. They created a great product in this calculator. They were great at the back and forth, listening to us and listening to public commenters about what they wanted to see in the calculator. We got a ton of help over the entire project from our technical advisory team, really filling in the gaps in expertise and letting us know what the latest data was and how we can make this the best, most scientifically accurate calculator that we can for the state of Minnesota. And then finally, our calculator user group took all of that work that had been done and made sure that it was user-friendly, and that people would be willing to adopt it as a solution for their EAW climate items. And part of that adoption is making sure there aren't hurdles for them to get started. And so our user group was really, really helpful in that aspect. Like I said, we've been working on this project for the past 14 months. We started with scoping and methodology, and finished that up in September, and then began construction of the calculator in September. We're still finishing up a few things. A final version of the calculator was released to EQB on Tuesday morning, I believe, so yesterday. And we've already gotten one more request for just a little update on an emission source. So it's done, but we're always looking to tweak and make it a little bit better before we say it's final. When the draft calculator was released in March 2025, we did have an input period after that. And so I'll go into that in the next slide, but I do want to mention, if anybody is looking for further information about any part of this project, I put at the bottom every time that I came to ARIS or EQB and shared some information with all or some of you. And so you can go back to the recordings for these meetings and see where we were at that point and get maybe a more in-depth analysis of the scoping or our early construction. And specifically, I want to call out the draft climate calculator demonstration that I did at ARIS in March. That's a great resource, not only if you're looking for more information, but if you're looking to get started with the calculator. There was a representative project used as an example to walk through all of the features of the calculator and look at what the results and tabs would give you. And so I think that's a great resource if somebody's a very visual learner and wants to see somebody do it before they then try and replicate it with their own project. The timeline here ends at July 2025 because that's when the contract with ICF is up. But our climate calculator is going to be a living tool. We are going to be looking to make updates based on people's commentary. But that July 1st, 2025 date is when we plan to officially release the calculator on the EQB website. And it will come with a user manual that I talk about in a few slides. But first, I did want to touch on this input period. It's something I haven't addressed the board about yet. We released that draft climate calculator in March 2025, and then it had an input period from March 19th to April 25th, so about 5 weeks. We did receive a lot of commentary. Some people were really excited about the calculator, and I'd love to see that. Some people were not so excited, and change is always hard, and we made sure that we talked with those commenters and tried to address their concerns. We definitely wanted it to be a dialogue and not like they were throwing comments into a black box. And so we have been working hard at the end of the comment period and into May to address some of those concerns. But the comments, the constructive comments fell really into 3 groups here. There was some commentary that wanted a review of emissions factors that we were using to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions, trying to make sure that they were truly Minnesota focused and the most up-to-date emissions factors. We also had people asking for clarification on how the climate calculator was going to fit into the existing EAW process. And this was probably the group of questions or a group of comments that needed the most interaction to kind of get them to understand what we are trying to accomplish with the climate calculator. And then the last group suggested next steps and enhancements for future versions of the climate calculator, which we love to see because we're going to have a list of things that people want, and prioritizing that is going to be impacted heavily by what the users want, what they think is most useful to help them in answering these EAW climate items. We have already made changes to the calculator based on the commentary, mostly in that first group of wanting a review of emissions factors. We did make some changes to make them more Minnesota focused. Had a data source or two pointed out to us that, we thought maybe this would actually be better after we researched it. So we are already listening to comments and making changes that the people want to see. I do want to say this input period was a formal input period, and we do not have any plans to have another formal input period because we want the input that comes as the calculator is released to be more of an informal conversation back and forth with people. There will be a lot of opportunities with some trainings coming up. You can get assistance through the EQB website, through the Environmental Review Technical Assistance line. If you have questions or comments that you would like to share with us. I always love opening my email in the morning and getting a climate calculator question. It feels like I can be really successful right away. So feel free to also send those directly to me. But if people have things they want to know about the calculator, things they want to say, we want to hear it. It helps us really assess what direction would be most beneficial for users. So as we look forward into the end of the contract, which the work must be wrapped up by June 15th, and the contract officially ends on June 30th with ICF. These are the 4 deliverables that we're looking to complete in that time. As I said, the calculator is final, but not as final as it was yesterday. And so we can consider the calculator deliverable delivered, but we may be making small tweaks until we release it on July 1st. We are currently doing some revisions on the report, but it is reaching that final stage, and the report is really going to give a comprehensive overview of all the emission sources. There have been memos released on each and every emission source as it was added to the calculator over the winter, and so all of those are being collated together into this report. And importantly, the report's going to include the limitations of the calculator, because we want this to be a really transparent tool. We don't want it to be a black box that people are scared to use. So it's important to let people know what the limitations are, and also maybe helps them direct our priorities into the future as we talk with users. Part of the report is going to be a user manual that will be an appendix at the end of the report. It's going to give detailed information about how to use the calculator. This is probably the #1 resource for users as they get into using the calculator for their projects. There will also be a background section for all of the calculations that are done in the calculator in the user manual. And when we release the calculator, the climate calculator on July 1st, the user manual will be right next to it on the EQB page. So it will be very visible, very accessible for people to get started. And then finally, we are going to be providing 4 training opportunities to the public in the coming month. We plan to do a calculator overview, a demonstration of the calculator, and have a Q&A session. And here are the dates for those trainings. The first 2 trainings are going to cover the same material. One of them starts tomorrow at 10 a.m. and the other is June 4th at 10 a.m. And that's just going to be a climate calculator overview, looking at the anatomy of the calculator, looking at what inputs and outputs are required to be input into the calculator, but then what outputs are required for the EAW and how that all flows back into those climate items. The second trainings are going to be more of a climate calculator demonstration, so get a little bit more in depth on what the climate calculator can do. And then there will be a dedicated time for Q&A at that second group of trainings. And those are June 11th and 12th at the times listed below. I'm very excited about these trainings, but I understand that they're coming up pretty quickly and not everybody's schedule is going to accommodate these dates that we have listed here. So I do want to reassure people, EQB staff will be continuing trainings into the summer and fall of 2025 and beyond if there is interest. We want to make sure people have an opportunity to get their questions answered and really start off on the right foot with this calculator. We will also be recording one of each of the sets of trainings here, and those will be available on the EQB website and our YouTube channel in June. So if you would like to do the training on your own time or you'd like to watch it just for your own interest, it'll be available there. The meeting notices for the trainings went out to a lot of the EQB messaging avenues, so the monitor, some of the Gov delivery lists. We sent it to our user group and asked them to disperse it. You all got an email, I believe, and feel free to pass that along. If you would like a link to join any of these trainings, please email me and I will send you the link ASAP, because I want to make sure that everybody who wants to attend the trainings has an opportunity to do so. The number of people in these trainings is not capped, so anyone and everyone can join. So as we finish up the calculator contract, we also are looking into the future for implementation and rollout of the climate calculator over the summer and fall of 2025. As I've said many times now, the climate calculator and the user manual will be on the website on July 1st. EQB is going to continually assess the effectiveness of the climate calculator through this continuous user engagement process. We want to provide ongoing supports to people who are needing some troubleshooting assistance. We plan to give some talks at conferences around the state and beyond, so trying to widen that user base of the calculator. And we will also be continuing the trainings for people who are interested in taking those in a live version and not the recordings. And then the final thing is after July 1st, EQB staff will be working on updating the existing EAW climate guidance. The climate guidance will be updated to reflect the climate calculator as a new resource. It is not changing the process for filling out the EAW form. Nothing about how the items are answered is changing. The only thing is that we need to tell people about the calculator in the guidance itself. And I just very importantly want to reiterate that the climate calculator is an optional tool. No one is required to use this calculator to fill out their EAW climate items. RGUs will still have discretion about the methods that they use to fill out the EAW. Our climate calculator covers a broad scope of projects, but each project has its own unique challenges, and we understand that for some projects, the climate calculator might not do everything that the RGU would like it to. So people can still feel free to use the method that they think best fits their project. And again, that EAW climate guidance will come after July 1st. So it will not be released at the same time as the calculator. We're going to get the calculator out there, get people started using it, and update the guidance as we can. And with that, that is the conclusion of the contracted part of the climate calculator project. And I will open it up for discussion. I have a question here about any implementation and rollout suggestions that you might have. And I wanted to put my email on here as well. So if you have questions, if you want to know about the trainings, you have comments you have to send to somebody, send them to me, because I love to see those early in the morning. And then even though I do, truly, that wasn't sarcastic. And then our Engagement HQ site is also live, and that's where you can find the calculator as well as the fact sheet that was included in your packet and a couple of other helpful documents related to the calculator currently. So before we officially release it on the website, it has been soft launched on our Engagement HQ page. So this is where you would go to get it if you've gone through a training and want to give it a try yourself. And with that, I will turn it back to the chair for discussion.
Okay, well, thank you, Steph, for going through all of that, the update. And I appreciate that you harken back to the, yeah. Nice job. And congratulations for getting to this point. But I'm glad you harkened back to the March meeting where you provided the demo, because I do think that was very helpful. And to go back to the recording of that, I think is helpful. And I really appreciate hearing about the trainings coming out in May and June, and then into the fall or beyond as well. So thank you for that. I appreciate that kind of rollout. What questions do folks have or thoughts or input on implementation? Go ahead.
I'll ask a question. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Steph, for all your work on this and for sharing it with us, and more importantly, for the trainings that are coming up so folks can use it. I failed to keep up with you in a particular moment just now where you were talking about question 18, which asks for quantitative information, and then you talked about the qualitative indications or suggestions that are given. So can you go back and elaborate on that just like 2% more?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Member Bauer. So with the resources and time that we had, we were not able to add in quantitative mitigation at this point. So there is a tab for qualitative mitigation in there where you will take an emission source. I believe it's a drop-down menu. You click what emission source you're interested in. Maybe it's material inputs during construction, and out pops a bunch of ways that you can mitigate your greenhouse gas emissions. Just a list of suggestions for people. And there are it's getting a little bit into the weeds, but there are ways to use the calculator to do quantitative mitigation. For instance, say you want to build a building with regular concrete. You would go through, you check the regular concrete portion or pick it from the drop-down menu when you're doing your material inputs for construction. You'd run the entire calculator, get your numbers. Then you say, okay, I want to change to green concrete to see what that mitigation would do for me. You'd go back to that drop-down menu, select the other type of concrete, and then run all your calculations again, and then take a difference of the two. Now, this doesn't work for every project and every emission source. It depends on the options that are available within the calculator, but that is one way that people can use the calculator creatively to get their quantitative mitigation. Otherwise, the qualitative suggestions are considered a jumping off point at this stage. We would very much like to add in the quantitative portion in the future as a high priority item to update the calculator. The calculator, as it is right now, is considered version 1.0, and we plan to have version 2, have version 3 in the future. So it's a priority to get that quantitative mitigation, because that is, the one place that doesn't quite match up with those climate. Yep.
Chair, appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for that overview, Steph. Question, so other than the quantitative mitigation, what other improvements are you seeing in those future iterations? I know there's still a lot to do between now and when that even starts, but just from the comments you were receiving or other information thus far.
Sure. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Member Smith. So I think a lot of the improvements we could make go toward user friendliness, perhaps. There's a lot of numbers that come out on the results tab, but we don't really have a frame of reference offered to, you get out 6,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. Is that a big number? Is it a little number? And so I think putting some perspective into the calculator would go a long way toward helping it be more user-friendly and understandable. We could maybe continually add in more options for some of the emission sources where we don't have, that fine tuning that a project proposer could do. I know there's one, and it's like escaping my mind. If I think about it, I'll certainly send you an email. But those are the types of things that we're looking at to have this be something that people want to use. If it's difficult to understand, the hope is that people won't just take the results tab, copy paste, and slap it in there. That they would have some understanding of what they are putting in there. So I think we've removed the hurdles at the beginning. The input part is fairly straightforward, but removing some of those understanding hurdles would be really helpful, I think.
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, I'll just note, I think, when we went through some of the scoping, there was some specific things that I think we knew from the beginning we wouldn't be able to include was like waste or deconstruction would have been at the end.
Decommissioning.
Decommissioning. I knew.
The decommissioning phase is not included in the calculator, just a resource limitation. So including that decommissioning is also something.
And so one of the questions that we will have moving forward is which of these things as we collect, like what the needed improvements are, what would help make it work better, which are the ones that we can do, and which ones we might need to ask for some resources to bring a contractor back to fix that. So that will be, there'll be regular maintenance needed, but then also as we need to add things or figure out what we can manage to add things, that will be one of the things for us all to discuss.
Question? Other questions? Comments? You hearing anything? Well, again, thank you, Steph. Thanks for all the work you and the team to get us to this point, and look forward to hearing how the implementation goes as we roll out after July 1st. Great. Oh, well, yes, this is the point. Thank you for the reminder. We're going to offer the opportunity to the public to make any questions. So if you are here in person, we'll call your name on the sign-up sheet and ask you to join up here to speak. If you're online, please raise your hand, use the raise hand function, and or note it in the chat. And Kayla will call on you and be able to unmute and speak online. And please be relatively brief with comments. So, anyone signed up? Okay. Anyone online who was interested in commenting? Seeing any? All right. All right. Well, you again, Steph, and congrats. Yay. All right. So then that moves us to the next item on the agenda, the Groundwater Policy Report for 2025. And our presenter is Executive Director. And take it away.
Thank you. If I might, Madam Chair, I might just say on the last agenda, Steph said this is the last time you're going to hear about it. It's the last time you're going to hear about it as a project of a thing that we're building. I'm sure that we will continue to keep you posted on what we learn about how the climate calculator gets used, how people like it, whether we need more resources and things like that. But all right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about one of our other ongoing projects, the 2025 Groundwater Policy Report, focusing today on the engagement that we did and the input that we received. So I'm just going to do a reminder of why are we doing this? What are we doing? What have we done for engagement? And then like what's happening next with this report?
I do.
Okay. All right, so EQB is required to report on policy issues related to coordination of state groundwater protection programs. That is in the statute. And then we have to attach some reports produced by our member agencies about water quality monitoring, trends, etc. So that is what we are currently working on. We've had an interagency work group doing that. I think we, in February, went through this proposed purpose and audience for the report. So again, trying to use this to help provide support informed decision making on groundwater, giving some foundational information, talking about the state's approach, and important sort of focusing on what I would call like key strategic threats to groundwater and how we're all working together to mitigate them. Focusing on providing information to those who have funding and policy responsibilities, local water authorities, and then folks who are interested in seeking data to support their understanding. We presented to you all an outline in, I think it was February, and then took that outline out to the public. I really wanted to get input on what should be included so that the report is useful and informative to the audience. We wanted to ask them, will the purpose that we've described here meet your needs for groundwater? Does this outline fulfill the purpose? Will that give us what we need? And then whether there was additional information that we should include. So we asked those questions, and what we did was we established an engagement HQ page with those questions on there, kind of broken up into buckets. What do you think about this goal and outline? And we asked people to fill it out. We sent some emails to our water programs Gov delivery email list. We had some direct emails to folks that we knew might be interested in the work. We put information out in the monitor. We let people know at the board meeting when we presented the outline to you all that we were going to be doing this. And we also held a webinar. And Kayla, as our tribal point of contact, sent the report outline to the Minnesota Tribal Environmental Committee members, asked them some questions about what kind of information they might want to see in the report as well, including if there was traditional ecological knowledge that should be shared about groundwater. And we let them know about the engagement HQ page, and also that we were willing to meet and chat about the report and its purpose as needed. And we're still willing to do that if folks are interested. So again, we just asked questions about the report, the narrative, the data and information that we were planning to include, what we had preliminarily identified as key threats or concern about groundwater, and then what did people want to know about the state's programs, actions, and tools that we are planning to talk about as the way that we protect groundwater And also, as we identified that one of the things we wanted to talk about was gaps and opportunities, we certainly got some comments on those as well. So this engagement was open for about a month. We had pretty strong participation. We got a lot of visits to the Engagement HQ page, and we had 9 commenters through that Engagement HQ page. We got 4 other comments through just emails to us. And we had about 30 people attend the webinar and help walk through the outline and ask questions and provided some input and thoughts at that point as well. I would say overall, the sense that I got was that people supported the overall purpose and direction and outline of the report. So the comments seemed pretty on board with the direction that we were going. And most of the feedback that we got would be more about the specifics that we included when we approached topics. So we got a lot of comments about the need for data, particularly around groundwater quantity. We had proposed talking about water reuse, and people said, well, how about this sort of larger concept of circularity? We had proposed talking about, new users of water. Folks said, well, what about sort of all large water users? So a lot of the comments were about things that we were already thinking about and that the interagency work group has sort of brainstormed that we would include, but the outline didn't have that level of detail yet. So things like private wells. We got a lot of comments on that, and that was very much something that we had keyed into as a report, something that we wanted to include in the report. So a lot of this information, and then there's a summary in your packet. Really, a lot of it is just contributing to what we're putting in the report as we fill out the pieces. So it was really, overall, the changes to the outline of the report that we sent you all in February are really limited. One change when we were talking about water intensive industries, we took one out because no one seemed very interested in it, and added another one because people pointed out, hey, carbon capture, utilization, and storage uses a lot of water. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that is something people are interested in. And then, as I said, we'll shape how we draft within specific sections. And we did the comment about water circularity, we did take that one and kind of reshape a little bit how we were thinking about those pieces. So I would say for the most part, there were some comments that were asked for things that we felt like were beyond the scope of the report, but a lot of them just really are going to shape how we talk about the issues and what we choose to emphasize. So what we did with this interagency work group was kind of split out pieces and sent out chunks for drafting, and the staff from the different agencies have been working on those pieces, and most of them are done. They were sent back to me on May 9th. And now we're working on compiling all of those pieces and trying to turn a rough draft back down to turn a rough draft back out to the group to talk through, to go, hey, wait, this is still a missing piece. How do we all, and then talk through how we all feel about pieces. So hoping that by the end of June, we will have an internal draft that will be able to be shared for internal and review by board members, with a draft final to go in your packets for August, for approval in August, for submittal to the legislature for the September 15th deadline. So that is the plan, and we'll be working to make sure that you all have plenty of time to see the versions, see the final version and ask questions and such, like, moving forward. So that is the very short and high level summary of the engagement that we did and what's coming next. And I'm happy to take questions. And as we've handed, we didn't hand the vice chair the gavel, but we have switched our chair here. So.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Director Newsford. Any questions from board members for Director Newsford? Okay, and I think we have another point for public comment potentially here on what Director Newsford just presented. If, first of all, anyone in person, is there anyone from the sign-up sheet that has public comment on this topic? And then, Kayla, are you the person I'm asking for? Okay, online, any online commenters? Okay. bear with me here. I'm just follow up. Script that I just got. So, I think,
Yeah,
I think
if
that,
anyone wants to comment, they should raise their hand, I think is where we're at.
okay, yeah, anyone else online that if you have a chance to raise your hand here, we'll see you. Okay, so are we doing a break?
Yep, we are.
We're a little ahead of schedule, I guess, so, still a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my prerogative.
Yeah, I think we get to decide.
There's nothing that says it's
Okay.
bad to end a meeting early.
We'll keep it to a 5-minute break then, if people can be back in their seats by 2.
Oh,
Very
very good.
good.
I'll say hello.
Okay, I think we're ready to restart here.
Yes.
Sit down. Throw much that is.
Okay, thanks, everyone. The next agenda item is number 6, and we have a engagement planning exercise that Priscilla's going to lead us through for strategic plan outcomes. Our presenter here, Priscilla Villa-Watt, is the Communications and Engagement Coordinator for EQB. We can feel really adept now at Robert's rules because we actually have to suspend Robert's rules in order to have a working session, and we have to have a full vote in order to do that so that we can work informally with Priscilla. So I'm going to ask Director Neusler, well, first I need a motion to suspend Robert's rules.
Bauer, can I'll make that motion.
Second,
Katzenberger, Katzenberger second.
so Executive Director Neusler will call the roll on the motion to suspend Robert's rules. Unless there's discussion first. Good job here.
So just to clarify, this is going to be a temporary suspension for this exercise.
We're going to.
And then we can come right back to Robert's rule.
That's right. All right, if no
Okay.
discussion.
All right. Commissioner Arnold stepped away for a second. Board Member Bakken,
Support.
Board Member Bauer-Kemper,
Yes.
Board Member Brands.
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham is not with us, and the chair had to leave. Commissioner Grunwald.
Yes.
Board Member Hintz. Not with us. Chair Holman.
Aye.
Board Member Katzenberger.
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler, not here. Chair Merton.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Verelak, not here. Board Member Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson. Commissioner Peterson, on the motion to suspend.
Sorry.
Sorry. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
And Commissioner Stroman. That is 10. Is all our present members.
And off to you, Priscilla.
Official.
Thank you for trusting me with no Roberts rules. Yeah, so I'm Priscilla Villa-Watt. I'm your Communications and Engagement Coordinator. And we're going to do something a little different today. I'm really excited that I get to do this in person. I feel like usually we're doing these kinds of things online. So what a great opportunity to have some conversation and do that live. So I wanted to share a little bit of background about why we're doing what we're doing today. And so this is all coming from interest that you all raised at a board meeting in December of last year around how we're doing our engagement work, specifically with the public and how our projects and board meetings and all that entails. So the goal of today's activity is to help identify how and where EQB staff should be prioritizing our work and our energy in the coming fiscal year when it comes to engagement. And we'll be working off of the current strategies the current engagement strategy that's part of our 5-year strategic plan. I printed out a couple of copies for you all, so those are on the tables in case you need a reference to the plan. So this will help us when we report out and monitor our progress when it comes to engagement, and really trying to nail down those key measures and reporting out like successes that we're doing when it comes to our engagement work with the board. So we'll start by reviewing the 4 strategies on engagement. We'll have some time to do a brainstorm. You'll do like small group discussions and then share ideas. We'll wrap up by honing in on some strategic EQB work that staff will specifically focus in on in the coming year, as I mentioned. We won't be making any final decisions today. This is more of a discussion and really helping the staff understand where you all want us to prioritize our engagement work in the coming year. And then we will be sharing the fiscal year 26 work plan in August. So you'll be able to kind of see where this goes then. Are there any questions so far? Okay, great.
Priscilla, do you want to let the folks online they'll get their instructions too, right?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that's coming shortly. Okay, great. So that's sort of the background and just kind of setting up what we're doing today and why. So now we're going to jump into part one of the facilitated discussion. So on each large post-it in the room, or for those of you online, you should see all 4 of our strategies for engagement up on the screen. They're again defined within our 5-year strategic plan, so these are not new. This is something that you all agreed on last year. And then we'll kind of go through all 4 and we'll read through the activities. So the activities under each engagement strategy are sort of like why are we doing specific work? What is it that needs to happen in order for that strategy to become successful and for us to achieve this outcome 1? We'll consider what needs to change, what needs to get added, what are we not doing, what do we need to do, and then sort of talk through that as we go along. Activities, again, are work that the staff specifically is doing. This is not necessarily work that the board does. It's more like staff does this work to support the board in an engagement. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and read these 4 strategies out loud. So strategy 1 is EQB has built and maintained meaningful relationships. Strategy 2, EQB has brought together Minnesotans to talk about environmental issues. Strategy 3, EQB created opportunities for partners, people interested and impacted by environmental issues to bring forward those issues to discuss. And then strategy 4, EQB implemented policies and processes that improved relations with tribal nations and their members. So those are the 4 strategies. And then within each strategy are a couple of activities that you'll see again on your worksheets, up here on the sticky notes. And for those of you online, you'll see those in the green boxes on the screen. So now what we're going to be doing is brainstorming. So you'll read through the activities and you'll just start to kind of think of some questions or ideas that you might have. And it can be for all 4, it can be for one specific strategy, just sort of wherever it is that you want to take your focus for today and your energy. So there's real no prescriptive, like start here and then go here. It's like if one of them is really speaking to you, then dive deep into that strategy. So you'll have 2 minutes to sort of do some brainstorming on your own. And then we'll move on to a partner discussion. So I'll give you all 2 minutes to just kind of quietly read those activities that are under each strategy.
And that's we're also on page 28 of your packet with some space for you to scribble notes if you want.
Thank you, Catherine.
No rules, I can just talk.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
If you have any questions, just let me know.
One question, is staff doing this too?
No, this is just the board.
Interested in staff's opinion.
But we've had many conversations. This is also coming.
That would help me to hear them.
Oh, okay, yeah. Guys, you got about 1 more minute. Okay. If you can go ahead and wrap that up, we're going to move on to the next portion, which is to pick a partner and sort of talk through your ideas and questions. So if you could work with the person to your left and board member Bauer Kemper to your right. Because I think it's even, so yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. No,
Half of us go left.
Half of us.
half of you go left. There you go. So Peter, here, I'll just make this easy. Peter, Daniel,
Run.
and, oh, okay. Then you three can just work together. That's fine.
There we go.
We're gonna win.
Oh, maybe then you three here.
Kind of like a potluck.
Nick, do you want to be with?
You'll have about 5 minutes to kind of just chat through your ideas and any questions you have with each other. For those of you online, since you're not able to pair up, you can go ahead and start submitting your ideas through the chat. And Rebecca will have, we'll write those down and add them to the notes up on the board. Go ahead and start doing that whenever you're ready.
Oh, I did. Okay. That's right. Who wants to start? Sure, I don't know.
Lauren, you want us filling in what's.
Yeah.
But
Just
that's,
think about it. Pretty much.
So it's about
Go to meetings where people are already gathering
really challenging.
and not having.
No, worries.
That makes sense. And I wonder if there are some of those things.
Yeah.
The easy low-hanging fruit might be county chairs or.
Trying to maintain that,
Could be other.
engagement for that
festivals.
one.
I don't want to just stand there.
Beyond council.
Too
And
crowded.
I think. so that's
I'll
something
send out
that-
like
I don't know how it's the solution,
Yeah.
but I think
To me,
that
the people
feedback
county,
of,
some people.
Right.
yes, things are changing.
Things like
Yes,
that.
we're interested in this. Whatever the concern is, I'm gonna be quite a sort of what's happening. Maybe that's big government, I think that's a lot.
What? I sound like you would.
Right. So, there's actually a lot of emphasis, I don't know that I like it. Research. I don't know if that's
No, it's good.
necessarily the
So
approach.
I work a lot in change management, right? Sustainability. Celebrating small wins.
Yeah, you got to figure out how to get people to come to
The organization, yeah, they do this. So we do that. And this sort of
crushes, but your question about what staff.
We can't, we celebrate together.
Because I don't do this. Work here, I know how to do it. Right, exactly.
But how
How they did that.
further than just.
Best suited to the.
Yeah.
There are a few people, but they seem to have very vested interest.
Yeah,
I
so-
think what they're getting at is maybe getting more people.
So why, like, why storytelling?
So you did come to it.
But that's like.
Figuring it out.
So it doesn't affect. So-
Yeah, I think that's really. Not only celebrate small wins, but also identify challenges.
So one idea is,
Anyway, I don't know, you know, if we think we're using accreditation
Necessary.
or you could use
You're
it
right,
for
government doesn't-
seeking following back.
I think
something.
one,
Spending on that.
Don't even do that.
Yeah, come down to individual support.
Well, we're talking about relationships, I think. Like today was great, lunch was great. I got to talk to like 2 people for a long time, but I didn't talk to anybody.
But it's not clear to me how that fits out.
We didn't get it. Right. I think
I mean, I know how it comes to me, but it's not.
building personal
really.
relationships. So, yeah. So like that's not necessarily.
We have
Relationships between all the commissioners. Relationships between people like us, who work in certain staff. Wouldn't have formal relationships on the stone. And then I think most important is how do we get
If you like.
all the partnerships in public better?
I didn't.
The strategies there.
That's the most common.
Environmental issues. Or do they said they're interested in.
Should I
so
be?
there's-
Or should I just wait?
And how do we?
I used to have a
I think that's the tough part about being a public member. We have a district. How does that better?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's, maybe it's an individual thing, like, for example, like, I might get, Southwest Controls, commissions, meeting where all the commissions get together, talk about stuff. Should I ask for a time, for example, does? For us?
Yeah, I mean, with the environmental Congress, I guess I just, having.
Yeah.
Here to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
Government's here to help, yeah. so
I know.
All the regulators are not gonna like that, but yeah.
Uh-huh. Then
The
like.
people that maybe had to use that are still kind of the same.
Yeah, go out right in the.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got a really cool thing last year with the right EQB did a
Yeah,
tour around the
yeah.
state.
Exactly.
Well,
And there were.
Right, exactly. Personalized engagement plan.
I have to explain like mostly what we don't do.
Yeah. So then, you know, so
Yeah.
now it's kind of official, kind of really.
But yeah, I was wondering.
So.
We have some ideas, but
Those are some.
some of our ideas.
What's your?
Yeah.
Good
Context.
Those were my questions.
It's like, that's good. Not the right way to do that. So that's like, that's like, there's some. Stuff, right? Yeah. So there's some very.
And it is.
Like that.
50%.
Stuff.
Yeah, I think part because we always page this. Sure.
It's right.
Unfortunately, I think they.
All right, if you could go ahead and wrap up your conversations. 5 minutes is up. Okay. So it's great. It's great to see you all chatting. That's good. There's ideas floating around. I hear a lot of questions going on. Okay, so for the next 5 minutes, now individually, you'll write your ideas on those green Post-it notes that are kind of floating around on your tables. So one idea per Post-it. And that's sort of to put up here on the what's missing. So I did an example. We should try something new for this. So you'll just stick them down here. And again, these are activities that you're trying to write down. If you have like a burning question that you want to write on there, that's fine. But these are really ideas around activities. And then one other reminder I want to put in for strategy 3 is that this is within the scope of what EQB can do. So this isn't just any old environmental issue that's happening in Minnesota. It's specific to like what we have the power to influence or change, and that's within the scope and purview of the board. So just sort of a reminder for this particular strategy. So again, individually write your ideas on those green Post-its, and you can use the markers. It'll help me read them later that are on the table. And so again, one idea per note, and then these are individual notes. So you'll have about 5 minutes to do that. Then we'll circle back. Any questions?
Our books online, they put them in the chat and want to
Yes.
transcribe them.
Board members online, please put your ideas in the chat. Rebecca will transcribe and put them up on the room, and then I'll read them out loud too. And board members online, if you have any questions for me, feel free to unmute or put it in the chat. Either way, it's fine.
I get to ultimately draft the work plan.
Oh, you do.
Looking for search.
Yay.
Steps in.
Yeah. Fine.
I'm just gonna note, I do see some of our public have a couple of notes in the chat. I know we've said we don't change, we don't keep the chat. I do appreciate the note and it's showing here in the room. So if any board members want to take something from that and put it on a post-it, feel free. We didn't really talk about the public chat. It's really not a place for comments, but I appreciate it. And just noting that we see it. So thank you. Thank you for that.
We have a couple more minutes. Add those ideas. I really wish I had brought like thinking music along. Wasn't sure like what's board appropriate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There are a few beverages back here, by the way, if you're in the room. Sorry for those of you who aren't. There's still a few beverages, so if anyone needs an extra, feel free.
Anyone need more time? Minute or so? Are you wrapping up? Or sorry, board member Katzenberger.
I can always use more time, so I can.
Okay.
Yep.
Great, is that everyone? Then we didn't get any, it looks like we didn't get any in the chat. Okay, I'm gonna now read what you all have added. Let's see if I can see these. So under strategy 1 for EQB has built and maintained meaningful relationships. We've got several. So send staff or possibly board members to events such as county fairs, have a booth or other way of attracting and engaging with people who might otherwise encounter EQB. So really getting us out there and the board. Add customers to relationship building. We've got improved feedback loop. This can take months and years, and some or most cannot stay engaged that long. Publicly communicate the big and small wins. Continue Greater Minnesota outreach events and listening sessions. Environmental Congress example, okay. Then we've got centralized contact management system, track interactions and engagement, manage historic input, is that right? Okay, historic input, and stakeholder group. And the last one is increase opportunities for EQB members and staff and public to meet in person, emphasis there, to facilitate stronger personal relationships and feedback loops. I think I see some themes around feedback, and then really trying to track who we're meeting with, and then trying to meet with more people too, getting out there more. Okay, so that's strategy 1. For strategy 2, this is EQB has brought together Minnesotans to talk about environmental issues. So we have an inventory and assessment of where combos are currently happening. So kind of similar to the ideas on the first one. We've got storytelling to shape EQB role and successes with stakeholders and public. We have intergenerational engagement opportunities, focused discussions to understand gaps in actions and allow input, and then focus on underrepresented voices. Then, what's this? Guidance? Does that say guidance?
Yeah, guidance or a framework for following up on public comment.
Okay, thank you. Dashboard or tracking of continuous issues brought up by stakeholders, and then continue to evolve and
Debate the EQB Congress.
thank you. Okay, so we've got some Congress ideas, some more tracking of events and people and issues. Great, storytelling, that's awesome. And then strategy 3, EQB created opportunities for partners, people interested and impacted by environmental issues to bring those issues forward to discuss. We have missing a method to bring forward. So like, I think we actually also have this in our notes somewhere, but it's like where do people bring those issues forward? Encourage RGUs to have public meetings or draft EISs. How does EQB's work reflect Minnesota's diverse communities? Evaluating our outreach effectiveness, outreach to historically excluded communities, and then documentation and transparency. There's a question here, should there be formal mechanisms for EQB's public members to collect input from their district? This might result in very local concerns. Arena.
That was mine. I was just thinking of like, you might get something that's very local to like one district that, maybe isn't like a EQB-wide issue, but.
Okay. And then last one here, we have EJ communities don't tend to engage in typical EQB meetings, may need to hold meetings in other times and locations and provide compensation, go to their community events for tabling, surveys, etc. I think some more like tracking mechanisms, ways for people to provide issues, like a system that people can bring issues to us. And I see a lot of Post-its on here also about diversity. So, okay. And then the last one we have is strategy 4, which EQB implemented policies and processes that improve relations with tribal nations and their members. So here we have tell EQB's story of how it uniquely serves Minnesota communities. Updates to the board on implementation of consultation policy. Maybe tie EQB participation on emerging environmental issues with specific agency consultation. Inform tribes early. Example on rulemaking and initiate work groups in which tribal and EQB staff co-write a rule in language. Formal consultation protocols.
Similar to section 106 at the Fed level.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Joint planning, project development opportunities, and continuing cultural competency trainings. Then lastly, we have on here, MinTech is great, but other intertribal organizations to consult, example, MIAC, Urban Indian Directors, and or individual tribes affected by regional issues in EQB's jurisdiction, question mark. Great, so I'm seeing a lot of early and broad engagement with tribes on this one too. Are there any questions for clarity about any of the ones that were written or read, or does anyone want to expand on their ideas?
For the one that is, I didn't write this one, but just an observation for the one that's trying to find the right tribal group, I think making sure it's clear from the EQB perspective, like where there's an issue and like which one has a sort of decision making, like because some overlap quite a bit, and I think we've seen in consultation where we'll have one thing with one tribal government and it'll come up at MIAC and it'll come up at something else, and that's not bad. That's like having more conversation. But if it's not clear, like who's making what kind of decisions and what are the appropriate venues for the kinds of issues or the kinds of decision making, then it can result, like it can take you back on relationship building just because there wasn't that clarity. And so I think just making, like, I would just be mindful of that as you're, like, I think that's a good suggestion. And I would just be mindful of where there are different jurisdictions or where there are kind of different reasons for having each group and what benefit they have and what, like, where their limits are, mostly in the bylaws of the group. But so that's the only sort of asterisk I would put on that one.
We appreciate that. We appreciate when folks tell us about new groups. Like I think your staff just let us know they know there's a tribal energy group for the energy rulemaking. You should talk to them. So we're gonna work on that. Yes.
Following up on that, there seems to be two themes. One is engaging with the public, especially marginalized communities. So individuals, marginalized communities, and communities themselves. At lunch, what came up in at least two of my conversations was how do we engage with the federal agencies like Indian Services or EPA and places like that. So that's also a relationship that the individual commissions have with federal agencies. At EQB, it seems like we would be involved in having discussions around that at the kind of the relationships that go up as well as the relationships that go, I won't say down, but out into the community. So it's not tied to any of those comments, but just a theme that came up.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything else they want to add? Everyone? Can you remind me of what time we have to wrap up? I'm trying to think.
We had, yeah, I think we estimated about an hour. We started about 2:10 at least.
Great.
Yeah, you have
Plenty
plenty
of
of time.
Okay. Sweet. Great. So now what we're going to do is you should have these little green dots on your desks. So we're going to, on your table, sorry. So we're going to do some dot voting where you choose 2 to 3 activities that really stand out to you that you think we should be prioritizing in the coming year. And those can be the activities that we have pre-populated or the new activities that you all identified. for board members online, if you have any ideas or activities that are really important to you, again, put those in the chat and Rebecca will add some green dots in the room. But yeah, let's do that for the next 5-ish minutes. So just kind of, you can stand up, read them, and kind of see which ones really stand out and you think we should be prioritizing in the coming year.
Do I get to use as many dots as I can find?
It's 2 to 3 per person. Yeah. Yeah. Any questions? Okay, great.
So that was an important question.
I'll get you. Dots. We can set you up. Ed Grant, I'm a public member from Morris, Western District 7.
I would say Paul, some of the.
You don't make it every time.
Who's got to, and what did we hear about? You know, we've put together.
I mean, I grew up on a farm in Iowa, so it's not that foreign to me. It's like 90 miles south of Rochester. So not the pretty part of northeast Iowa. It's still flat, black ground.
Yeah, I grew up in,
Okay. So that would be more in the lumber country.
right on the verge.
Yep. Right.
But my parents grew up near Mason City.
Okay. Well, it'd be in between there. Okay.
There isn't much in between
Well,
there, in terms of towns.
no, yeah, we were between New Hampton and Charles City.
Yeah.
So either of which are famous, except I think the third mass production tractor was built in Charles City. It's the White, well, it's not White Farm. It was, what was it?
It was
Oliver? It might have been Oliver.
Summit Relays was the big deal.
I guess, yeah.
Was they, Charles City always had, so, it was right before Drake Relays.
Oh.
It was the,
Oh, for state, okay, that's right.
For Drake Relays.
Yep.
And then you go-
Oh, and then the state, yeah. Okay. I don't know, I went to Charles City High School, but I try to forget it. A lot of it.
And one right after the tornado.
74.
Yeah, 68 was the
Yeah.
tornado.
Heard a lot about it. I went to an elementary school that was basically underground. Wow, wearing this all.
Oh, yeah. This is my addiction. These headphones. I like hear when my phone alerts and when I whatever, so.
Always in here. Happy to partner. Not for speaking. That's what I asked. Poorly received.
Y'all are fast.
That's-
Versus your choice.
Uh-huh.
Make good choices. All right. So it looks like we have a couple of contenders here. Is what I was hoping for, and y'all wouldn't be like just voting random ones and we wouldn't have a majority. So we have several votes on inform tribes early. Like rulemaking as an example, initiate work groups in which tribes and EQB staff can write rule and language. A clear vote. I'm going to hand this over to Rebecca. She'll scribe these onto these larger Post-its for this next portion. And then we've got this one here. Should there be formal mechanisms for EQB's public members to collect input from their district? This might result in very local concerns. There's an example there. Oh, this one. Yeah. And then we have these two, which is storytelling, shape EQB's role and successes with stakeholders and the public, and then continue to evolve and innovate EQB Congress. Oh, that's my time. All right, these feel, I was hoping I could combine these. These feel really different, so we'll just do four. Do four votes. Okay, well, Rebecca writes these on these larger Post-its. We'll go on, I'll kind of explain what we'll be doing next.
Priscilla, I hate
Yes.
to be overly micromanaging, but could we do, I'm very interested in this help partners and the public better understand who we are. We've got 3 votes on that one.
Yeah.
Any way we could throw that in, or is that one too many?
I can go vote on it if you want.
Did you not vote?
I did.
Okay. Let me see. Let me read one of these other ones and see if there's some similarity. Stakeholders there. Public members, issues, informing tribes, and the Congress. What if we combine the Congress with that help partners and the public better understand? I feel like that's part of what the Congress is aimed to do. Yeah, we can combine this. Like, yeah. You can do like, you can write up that help partners and then do it as an example of the Congress.
Where is that help partners?
It's on.
It's the three to green dots.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Help partners.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Okay, so you're gonna move on to the second portion. So Sarah, if you could screen share that second image we've got. So now that we've identified a couple of activities, we're gonna dig a little deeper and get more specific about what kind of work, like what work that would entail. So if we're trying to, for example, help partners and public better understand what we do, how do we do that? What do we need to do to make that happen? Perfect. Thanks, Sarah. So an example that I have up here on the board, on the screen, of how this sort of plays out is that we have the larger outcome that informs the strategy. And we have activities, which are sort of these like buckets of broader tasks that we need to be doing. And what I like to call them is like why we do them, or why we do the actions. And then the actions are very specific types of work that we do. So an example here is EQB has built and maintained meaningful relationships. An activity is to help partners in the public better understand who we are and what we do. So an example of an action is that there are engagement plans for every EQB project, that we work with youth development organizations, and then we do a EQB 101 presentation to the MPCA, Environmental Justice Advocacy Group. So those are some examples of actions. So similar to what we did in this first part, we're going to do some brainstorming around actions that we can do on the activities that you all have voted on. Is that making sense? You following? Clear? Here's mud. Okay, so these are just examples. Some of these actions we're already doing. Some of them we have planned to do, but they're not necessarily set in stone. And so with this next section, we're going to go through and think about those actions that the activities that you all voted on, and then come up with some ideas for actions that we would do under those activities. Clear? Okay, good.
And these can be, I would say, like, level of specificity might vary. I mean, if it's as specific as like sign up for this listserv, so you hear about these kinds of meetings that you could go to, like that's perfectly acceptable as an action. So, that's what the kind of thing that we're looking for. It doesn't have to be that specific, but it can be if that's something that comes to your mind.
All right, so we have activity 1 here. Unstuck is to inform tribes early on. Work groups in which tribal and EPB staff co-write rule language. We have this activity 2. Just continue to evolve and innovate EPB Congress, which is part of the helping partners in the public understand who we are, what we do. Here. And then see this third one is the storytelling storytelling shape EQB role and successes with stakeholders in the public. I think that one went here. And I think we've got one more. Which is should there be more formal mechanisms for EQB's public members to collect input from their district? I think that one also went. So we're going to take another minute for y'all to read through these 4 and sort of come up with some preliminary ideas and questions that you might have about what it would mean to achieve these activities, what kinds of work needs to happen to make these 4 activities successful. And I'll just take this down. So if you take a minute, kind of read them and think that through. Then we'll go into partners. For those of you online, I think I'll just read the activities. Actually, I'll have someone pop them in the chat for me. Okay, and then if you could get together with your previous group to kind of talk through again your ideas and questions that you have about the activities. And I'm around if you all have any questions for me too. But yeah, I'm going to take another 5 minutes to do that.
The storytelling, I put my entire staff through story.
You don't like
I would put down training. I don't know.
What
It
kind
was
of,
working.
what,
We're, part of our job was talk landowners and conservation, so having stories.
who did the training?
I had a kind of a management concept. Lots of stuff online about it. Tried to do it in my church here too. And 10 people show up.
So an actual training, like the storytelling, actually put down.
Yeah, how what makes a good story, you deliver it, practice a little bit. On that storytelling, Hauser actually writes up the stories. And publishes a lot of projects that are done for conservation. So you see that kind of thing.
Oh, that's okay. I was,
What they
I was just going back actually, I was looking at
storytelling.
more formal mechanism website. And remembering,
So those are
I was
two
using
things.
mission
that are-
and entries, yeah.
You know, the more
Plays
formal
for
things for bed members to run on the
Decide their activities, or ideas. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Yeah.
Hands are just getting.
Yeah. And also.
Environmental. Nobody likes to hear.
Young people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Developing countries, like, infectious
yeah.
disease.
Close, that's us.
Oh, yeah. No, I think it is.
Yeah, so that.
Thank you for that. Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're all public.
The story.
Yeah, you know, the last one. And I've often felt like, well,
But like, I mean, I think that counts.
I'm just sort of representing my own perspective. I haven't ever like actually tried to figure out what my district is. I don't know if you guys thought about this.
I have. Yeah.
Or.
Minnesota.
Like, yeah, do like a district, like a city council member does, like, at the time that a piece of place or something, he's gonna be there.
Let's take about one more minute.
I don't know how.
Where I've done
I
it
guess
is,
there's.
if Amanda
It's
said.
kind of like the legal aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I did is very.
No.
I think we need to do it, but. People don't.
So.
Yeah.
Everybody did a little bit one like that.
Yeah.
No, you make a point.
It's my experience. What
You
my-
should not-
Yeah, that's the other one.
Both experience.
Come back. This.
Yeah, an idea about, it's just like, the shape of like a lemon.
This building.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that,
Yeah.
because it, is it
So if I had-
of the shape? I don't know. I think the photos.
Yeah.
I'm just mad.
Yeah.
Mad. Then be mad like sex.
Okay, we can go ahead and wrap things up. Again, I love that discussions are happening. It's good.
You might hear what you don't want to hear.
Yeah, right. That's why I have to like represent.
All right, so for this last part, you're gonna do again, write your individual ideas on the yellow Post-its. Probably a marker, just helps me read it a little better. And then you'll stick them on the corresponding activity Post-its. Then I'll just say for board members online, again, feel free to use the chat for any ideas that you have around the 4 activities that Hazel and Kayla have typed in the chat as well. So feel free to use that chat box.
Well, how often does it? Oh, every 2 or 3 years,
It used to be every other year before the pandemic,
and then it's,
and then things changed.
yeah, and it's all
Um,
over the state, right? Or is it just limited to a couple of?
It used to
regional
just
cities?
be in one city. Then people would just all come to wherever it was happening, and but they held it at in different parts of the state every other year. I think there was a Mankato before.
2019 was in Mankato.
Yeah,
Brainerd I was at.
Yeah.
Central Lakes College.
Yeah.
That was the recent version.
That's the
Yeah.
There
recent,
were
yeah.
like multiple episodes.
Right.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't know you guys-
And we're totally open to suggestions on, right, how to do that moving forward.
What I'm doing, I'm writing the ideas for
For
actions
actions,
on the
right.
yellow.
yes.
Okay.
Specific work that we should do that would help us to fill that activity bucket. Some examples, the help partners and the public. Priscilla and I have talked about, we need a little fact sheet. Here's your intro to the EQB. I think we have started one. So things like that. Ideas like something specific. Or less specific, but. For folks to stick them up there if they're done.
Oh, yeah, if you're done, feel free to stick them up on the wall. Sorry, not on the wall, the large post-it on the wall. Again, if you're done with your Post-its, you can stick them up on the big Post-its up here. No. Great, it does. I didn't mean it.
see the whole story if you're only interested in X.
Right.
You know, it's, that's the main thing.
Take about 1 more minute.
No, I can't. Try to write legend this time. You know, that what you needed to say. They like portrait orientation. I should.
Great, awesome. These are, is that everybody? Anyone else grading? Awesome, thank you. I'm debating whether or not I should read through them. I'm gonna read through them. So for activity 2, this is helping partners in the public understand who we are. Hold quarterly in-person community outreach or town halls throughout an entire state, not just metro. Annual Environmental Congress, alternate locations. EQB table at State Fair Eco Building, which we have.
August
We
20,
have-
August 29th?
August 29th, we usually, well, we've had a table, I shouldn't say usually, we've had a table these last couple of years at the Eco Building for Pollinator Day. So we'll be sure that you all get that information. Okay, and then for activity 3, storytelling and shape EQB's role and successes for the public. Develop an engagement plan, topic specific to share EQB stories, successes and challenges, story maps, social media push. Priscilla's newest influencer. Topic or district specific, I should add. This one's develop a storyboard, so you all are thinking alike there. Emphasize stories about successes. Post written stories online. Storytelling trainings. What makes a good story? Talk to Bowser regarding stories. They have been writing them for years about about projects on conservation practices. They learned and what's been working. Allow EQB members to create a short video to tell their why I joined EQB. To post on EQB page. Purpose is to invite outreach, conversation, and feedback. Explore working with Minnesotan authors, Explore working with diverse Minnesota authors, particularly children's authors, illustrators, graphic novels, about creative ways to tell our work. Share a story about how EQB worked with stakeholders to preserve Minnesota land, water, air, energy, etc. Increase pressure on social media and elevate through board members what EQB does, impact of our work, and how to get involved. That's something I've definitely been brainstorming. So yes, like mine's. Activity 4, which is, should there be more formal mechanisms for EQB's public members to collect input from their district? Public members hold informal gathering, almost like office hours in local coffee shop or bar. Could EQB staff help promote to residents? Okay. Create a list of organizations looking for speakers. Develop personalized district engagement plans. Pair public members and EQB staff for joint engagement opportunities. And then an online form that invites input and helps folks correlate their input to EQB's statutory duties. Those. And then this last one here is inform tribes early on rulemaking, for example. initiate work groups in which tribes and EQB staff co-write language. So it says add tribal activities update item to each EQB meeting agenda. Identify upcoming projects or reports to pilot co-writing with tribes or tribes and tribal organizations to see how it goes, what to modify on the next one. Pilot this with gas production rulemaking. Through tribal liaisons, advance conversations early for initiatives and or rulemaking. And the last idea we have here is tribes that share geography with Minnesota significantly in their capacity to participate in rulemaking. Find out which tribes are interested and or which may be interested in assisting tribes that are interested but have less capacity to participate. Okay, so this one's talking about capacity and being more and RN being more involved. So great, these are some interesting ideas, y'all. I'm really excited to take these back. Yes.
I just have a question. One of them asked about like a speaker list or something like that.
Yeah.
Does EQB get requests to have people come and speak at either conferences or organizations, things like that?
We haven't a lot. Priscilla and I just spoke to the EJAG, the Environmental Justice Advisory Group for PCA last week. And it's something that I've been trying to ask folks that we do know, like, hey, are you working with environmental groups? They want to know about environmental review. Like, we could come and do that. But it's not, we haven't gotten a lot. Rebecca's probably the most popular. People want to talk about the bees, so she's been on podcasts and stuff. But that's part of what we want to build out too with our trainings. And I think like we have been asking folks. I think a couple of folks are speaking at the Association of County Planning and Zoning Administrators. We know they have regular meetings, so we've kind of reached out. Sometimes they reach out to us, but we're not like in high demand.
Well, I mean, because I do speaking, right? Like
Yeah.
on a personal level. And it would be easy for me to arrange speaking arrangements where I'm talking about EQB stuff instead of climate and energy and efficiency and things. But I do think it's a great opportunity, and it's, contractors, architects, engineers, organizations that deal with this stuff that might want to have even something like this, some kind of facilitation.
Any other questions? Notes to add? Awesome. Well, I think this was really interesting for me, who's going to be leading some of this work, to kind of see your ideas and where you have interest in us focusing on in the next year. I think in terms of next steps, as I mentioned, we'll be taking this into consideration as we develop our work plan for the coming year. And then we'll report back on that in August. And yeah, like I'm just personally excited to like do and explore some of these ideas in the coming year. I think I want to get out there more. So I think that's definitely in alignment with what we've talked about.
One thing I would add to the storytelling is the history of EQB. So EQB's been around for a long time, and maybe telling the story of where EQB's work, presence, leadership really made a difference on an issue, even if it's going to go back 50 years or however long you've been around. I think that would be helpful too.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of like sharing stories about what has worked and what we've done well and successes, and I think we could go back quite a ways and really highlight some of those initiatives and areas where we've been successful. Okay, well, that's all I've got for you all today. Thank you for suspending Robert's rules and trusting me, in this. And yeah, if you have any questions, and again, those of you online too, if you aren't able to participate as much, I'll be around. Feel free to email me or reach out with anything you might need.
Thank you.
Thanks, Priscilla. So we can
Go back.
go back into Robert's rule. We don't have to vote to do that.
I think thanking the board member, Katzenberg, helpful clarification. I think we're probably good there.
Good. So the next agenda item, number 7, is to take up a motion that we tabled last month, which is the motion to approve the bylaws. That motion is on the very back page of your packet, page 40. It's just the approval of the bylaws. Directing the executive director to produce a final version, to put in the final date and remove the draft mark and so on. This item, because it's on the agenda, we don't need to like formally vote to take it back off the table, is my understanding. So we want to continue that resolution now. But my understanding is first we might have a motion on our Bauer Kemper. So we're going to sort of take that up first.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Chair. So as y'all will recall, we talked about these bylaws last time and I offered up 2 potential amendments. And we discussed them and there was some input, particularly on the second one, or what now would appear to be the second one, as far as where it might go. And so if you look at packet page 37, you'll see a version of the bylaws that have 2 underlined chunks of text that I'm proposing that we include in the bylaws when we pass them and begin to implement them. So in the middle of page 37, are we taking these together? You want to take them separate?
Up to however you would like to do it.
Okay. Well, I'll start by trying to take them together. Packet deal. So the first one there in the middle of packet page 37, next to the numeral 9, is a touch of language that aligns these bylaws with rule. So rule already requires that the chair advise the board of all submitted matters, matters submitted to be on the agenda that are not placed on the agenda. And so this takes that rule language and replicates it here in the bylaws so that it's just a little closer at hand procedurally. And so we're all a little more aware of it. This doesn't change anything. We've been acting in accordance with the rules, presumably. So that brings that into the bylaws. The next one on the bottom of packet page 37 there, as you can see, reads, when communicating about EQB's actions, the staff shall not indicate that the board has taken a formal position on a matter unless the board has indeed taken such a position. This is hopefully fairly straightforward. When I proposed a similar amendment during our April meeting, I had a really broad sense that I didn't want anybody representing a board action that hadn't been taken. But our colleague on the board suggested this would fit better down here in Article 5, and so it's been moved and made more specific. So those are the suggestions that I move that we amend the bylaws to include.
Point of order. So the bylaws have not been accepted yet, right?
Correct. We have taken them off the table, the motion to accept them.
So I would just, a friendly amendment that you're moving to approve the bylaws as amended.
I think the motion is to amend the draft with these amendments, is my understanding of what board member.
Okay, then I'll second that. Can I have a question. Member Bauer Kemper, on that first one, the 0.9, you said that, and you might have talked about this last month, I just forget. It's already in the rules somewhere. Could you say more about that the chair would talk about things? You're saying things that have been proposed for the agenda that she's not putting on the agenda. Is that right?
Right. Hypothetically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the rules already stipulate a process for the agenda to be created. These bylaws somewhat clarify that process and provide the facilitation of the executive director in order to make that happen. But the rules already provide a procedure through which people suggest to the chair items that they would like to see on the agenda, and the chair decides which items end up on the agenda. And the rules also currently require the chair to notify the board of suggestions the chair has received that the chair used their discretion to not include on the agenda. So that language is already in the rule, and so I'm asking that we include it in the bylaws.
And when would this happen? Would the chair like verbally, before we approve the agenda, would it happen then? Or would this happen, that would be up to the chair?
That'd be at the discretion of the chair. The rules don't clarify a procedure for that, and I'm not suggesting that we clarify a procedure for that.
I have a question for Executive Director. With that, so it would seem that there are probably times when there are issues that have legal or other confidentiality requirements that are being asked to be put on the agenda, and they might not be ready to be put on the agenda. So I guess to follow up on your question, is it going to happen at the meeting during the public meeting, or is it going to be something that gets communicated here? You know, I guess that's what I'm asking, is the mechanics of that.
Yeah, and we haven't totally figured out the mechanics. In general, I would say I'm not aware of anything where we've gone, nope, we're never putting that on the agenda. Sometimes there's something will come up and you're like, well, not this month, we'll do it. Next month, we'll do it at a future time. And so I think in my discussions with board member Bauer Kemper, it was about, then someone could say, look, I've asked you 3 times to put this on the agenda. It's not on the agenda. Why? And so, you know, certainly I think that if there are things that come up, that there's a decision that is not going to be on an agenda, that's something that the chair could report in their chair's report at the beginning of the meeting. You know, I think with some of the discussion we just had and some previous discussion we've had about, well, how do things get on the agenda and how do we know what people are interested in? There's a possibility for like a more systematic way of sort of keeping track, and maybe there'd be a printed something if we suddenly got a lot of things on the agenda. So I think there's certainly ways to make it work. Sorry, for some reason our camera just decided not to work. All right, well. See you. All right, everybody online, we're gonna try to make it so you can see us.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, good enough for now. So yeah, was that helpful?
Yeah.
And it is in the rules, our procedural rules in 44.5. It does say something basically the same thing.
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
So the backstory here is pretty simple. At a meeting, several meetings ago, we talked about the bylaws and we talked a little bit about the agenda and how things get on the agenda. And there were some various ideas that were bandied about, you know, if 2 board members want something on the agenda, it should be on the agenda. And I was curious about that and how we might put that into the bylaws. And so I went and looked at the rule, and I don't imagine that we're doing rule changes and rulemaking on this anytime soon. And so as I was reading through the rule, which I pulled up here, so items may be placed on the agenda by notifying the chairperson of the matter at least 14 calendar days prior to a regular meeting. The chairperson shall determine whether or not a matter should be placed on the agenda and shall advise the board of all matters not placed on the agenda. So that's the rule language, what it means and how the chair decides to advise the board, I would suggest is at the discretion of the chair and probably should remain that way as we deal with that.
And then what you just read, it just said by notifying the chair. So it doesn't say like who can ask for something on the agenda. It could be one of us, but it could also be just a member of the public, right? Okay. With your motion, it just would make this consistent with the rule that you just read, but it would sort of leave it to the chair. All the mechanics we just talked about and who can do it and all that, yeah. Any other questions or discussion on this one?
Understand the second one, like what's an example of something that?
Sure. So the example that arose this for me was the GTAC report, which is actually not something, you know, this is only glances in relation to that because this refers to staff. The GTAC report was put together by a committee and the chair put out the report. in which the report stated that the EQB recommends various things. And so then I, as a public member, I heard from constituents asking, why did the EQB recommend this? What was your process for deliberation? And when did y'all decide this? And I was kind of caught flat-footed because we didn't discuss or decide or make recommendations. Those were recommendations based on the expertise and the knowledge and the insight of the staff, but that was not clearly represented in the report. And so, you know, the bylaws, I don't imagine that these are something that are aggressively enforced, and they wouldn't apply to the GTAC and its chair who put out the report. But I want everyone, members, staff, anybody involved in the EQB, to be mindful of the possibility that there can be confusion between EQB as an agency, as a set of professional experts who do very important work and testify before the legislature, and then EQB as this deliberative body that takes action. So that's the backstory. This does not procedurally address that issue, but it's maybe a helpful reminder that folks outside of the EQB orbit can often use some encouragement or some clarification on what an EQB deliberative action is that the board has taken, the Environmental Quality Board, and what guidance and recommendations come from the expertise.
Thank you. So I mean to belabor the point, but like this isn't going to prevent that, right?
Right. It's going to hopefully create a context in which board members, based on the very similar provision in, which is the article, is it Article 1? Similar provision in Article 1 referring to board members.
5B.
On page 36.
25B, thanks. So these, indeed, like this amendment and that previous mirroring provision don't directly preempt or solve that issue, but it provides a basis for reminding folks that we work with and that we encounter and engage with the nature of if it is an EQB action or if it's not. Help ensure that there's an understanding of that so that it is less likely to be represented ambivalently.
So perhaps an amendment to the language here. The EQB's actions, I think, is still fairly vague. The previous sentence is referring to the administrative agency making administrative decisions based on the board's adopted policies. I think that perhaps a clearer way to say that is when communicating about the EQB's administrative actions or reference the prior statement, and which is carrying out the prior sentence carries out the kind of board policies. This makes it seem like it's like EQB's actions refers to the board, not the administrative functions. Do you see the subtlety there? So I think when communicating about the administrative work of the environmental or the day-to-day use some of the words in the previous sentence so I can formulate something. The staff shall not indicate the board has taken a formal position in the board, because it's using EQB in the two things together. And I think if we just say, so perhaps it's when communicating about the actions, the administrative actions of
so this is a good example, right? Because if I recall correct, Catherine helped me out, that first phrase came about through our conversations. It's when communicating about the EQB's actions, we probably thought we were referring to the formal actions of the board, right?
If I recall, I think it was sort of meant to, I mean, it's meant to say
be clear about what kind of action it is, essentially. Like, did the board vote on something? Did the board approve something? Or is it sort of an administrative decision made to fulfill sort of the overall direction set by the board in a broader way? So, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think I like where you're going. It is, I mean, saying an issue is just semantics is often used to say it's not a big issue. And I don't mean it that way, but it really is the problem of using the same words to refer to the agency and the board.
Right.
Is complicated.
Yeah.
And that's really just what we're trying to make sure that that we're aware and that we're using and explaining who did what most clearly.
Right.
So I don't, even the points of order at bay. What if we scratched the first 6 words there? And so the sentence began, or even the 7 words, staff shall not indicate.
I would flip it because it's right now it's a negative
You know?
instead of trying to articulate what should happen.
Yeah.
Which means that it's inevitably not gonna, like, one, it's saying staff shall not, which is,
Awkward.
I think always ends up in weird places. But if it said something like, when communicating about the work of the, and I can like make a formal thing, but let me just test out this concept. And then when communicating about the administrative work of the EQB, or when communicating externally, staff shall indicate board decisions, or, which decisions are made under administrative authority versus have been taken action by the board, or something like that, by affirmative board action. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I kind of like that, Commissioner Arnold, because it seems like, so boards adopted policy resolutions and directions. Those are things that we have like voted on in a meeting where there's a quorum, right?
Yeah.
So that what we do as a board, we have some decision items where we have a resolution and we voted on it, and staff can see exactly what it says in that resolution, that was our position that we formally adopted. And then we have some informational items where we get told about something that's ongoing, like Rebecca telling us about the plans for the pollinator report. We don't take any action, but it's informational. And then there's work done by the staff that just kind of goes on in the background that we don't get informed of. I mean, not that we won't get informed of, but like staff is continually helping people like do EAWs or something, right? So those are like 3 distinct areas of work. And it's only the first one where there's a formal vote and we've taken a position. So maybe, kind of like Commissioner Arnold was saying, switching it to away from the negative phrasing and basically just some wording that would request staff to be really clear when they're talking about an action that EQB has voted on and taken a formal position, which is, I think, what you're trying to get at.
Mhm.
And you seem like you were almost there actually with the language.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I think what I would, are you writing something that might be the language, or I want to put it on to you?
I was attempting to write what you had said, but I
Okay.
lost it.
No, that's fine. So, I think I would say the staff are responsible for communicating actions, and then hold that for a word, like the reason, but like bracket that because that's not the right word.
Okay.
For actions taken. For the like authority under which actions are taken, and then it's either citing back to a board decision, it's an administrative thing, or it's under informational. Authority is maybe not the exact right word, but something like that. Yeah.
No promises that this covers it, so please listen closely. So staff shall indicate the board's formal position when communicating externally about the EQB's administrative actions. Did that catch it? I just removed a couple phrases.
Wondering if that is not, like, that doesn't capture the inverse where there's no formal position, which I think was
Which is
the,
a lot of work.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. If, Chair Martin, if I could we, as a body, sort of get conceptual agreement? It's like no conceptual disagreement about the first one, conceptual agreement on kind of where we're going, take a 4-minute break to get language and then come back and then vote on it.
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Member Bauer, did you want to?
I have maybe an idea along those lines. How about I'll split up the amendments?
Yeah.
Withdraw the second one. We can approve the bylaws if we're so inclined, and then we can amend them later.
We can do that. Okay.
At our leisure. Bylaws may be amended by majority vote of all.
We could do that, but you know, if we're all roughly on the same page and we think with the 5-minute break, we can come up with language, then we might be able to do both amendments now.
Okay. Try.
But why don't we do a vote on the first one? And then we'll take a break and we'll do a vote on the second one. Sense? Maybe that just adds more time. Maybe we should just.
Yeah, I think that we keep it, yeah,
Okay.
we can do a friendly amendment to,
All right.
You're a Robert's rules.
Yeah.
Parliamentarian.
So Chair, you've asked for a 5-minute recess.
Wordsmith.
Yes, let's have a 5-minute recess and maybe Bar Kemper can sort of come and talk to others here and we can come up with new wording that he can introduce as an amendment to his amendment.
Okay,
Sure.
all right. 5-minute
Clock.
recess.
we're gonna come off of our recess. Commissioner Arnold, would you
All right.
make,
I would like to make a friendly amendment to the amendment proposed by Board Member Bauer Kemper to revise the language. Staff are going to put the language in the meeting chat. So Sarah, thank you for helping with that. But I'll read it out now. So so we had two parts of the amendment proposed by Member Bauer Kemper. The first appears on page 37, package page 37, Article 4, number 9. No changes to that one. This would be Article 5, number 3, duties of staff. Currently reads, the staff are responsible for the day-to-day operations of the Environmental Quality Board as an administrative agency of state government, making administrative decisions based on the board's adopted policies, resolutions, and direction. Rather than the language that's shown in blue in track changes on the packet, the bottom of packet page 37, the sentence would read, the staff are responsible for communicating about administrative and board decisions. In doing so, the staff shall indicate whether the action represents decisions made administratively or by vote of the board.
great, thanks, Commissioner Arnold. Member Bauer Kemper, how do you feel about that friendly amendment?
That's great. Thanks.
And then I seconded it, so I accept it as well.
Okay.
Now we're back to discussion.
Any further discussion?
Just say I'm in support.
Okay. Director Newsweek, could you call the roll? This is not adopting the bylaws, but just on that amendment as amended by.
Well, we're adopting both into the draft.
Right. So we're adopting both of the amendments, the second one as amended and accepted.
Mhm.
So that's what we're voting on now.
And this is the draft, and then we'll do a,
Then
then we'll vote
Yeah.
to accept the bylaws. Okay. All right. So again, the motion is to amend the draft bylaws with the language in Article 4, Item 9 that was shown in the draft on packet page 37 and then with an amendment to Article 5, Item 3, as communicated by Commissioner Arnold. I was hoping we could get in the chat so that people could see it. Oh, if we could, just for the folks out in the land, that second sentence would read, the staff are responsible for communicating about administrative and board decisions. In doing so, the staff shall indicate whether the action represents decisions made administratively or by vote of the board. So the motion is to approve those amendments to the draft bylaws. Commissioner Arnold. Aye.
Board Member Bakken.
I can support that.
Board Member Bauer Kemper.
Yes.
Board Member Brands.
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham is not present. Chair Daubenberger is not present. Commissioner Groundwald.
Yes.
Board Member Hintz not joined us. Chair Holman.
Aye.
Board Member Katzenberger.
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler not with us. Vice Chair Martin.
Yes.
Commissioner Barilak is not with us. Board Member Nelson.
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes.
Board Member Smith.
Aye.
And Commissioner Stroman is not with us. To be 11, okay. That is 11. That is a majority of the board members, so that be approved.
Great, thank you. So that amendment is approved. Now I would ask for a motion to adopt the bylaws as amended.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Member Nelson. Any discussion?
After discussion.
Or before? So no more discussion from board members. We wanted to offer an opportunity for any public comment before we take a vote on adopting the bylaws. First of all, anyone in person that signed up? anyone online that would like to comment, this is again, just on the adoption of the bylaws. We have no one wanting to comment on that. Okay, hearing none, Executive Director Nusler, could you call the roll? This is for adoption of the bylaws.
So, Mr. Chair, if we may, I think we want to, there is a resolution that I do want to have. The original resolution that we were considering was that the bylaws on the 16th, and now we have a new version that Sarah has ready for us to adopt, that the bylaws were reviewed by the board on the 15th of January, the 16th of April, and today. And then essentially that the board resolves to adopt the bylaws as proposed in the meeting packet and amended at the meeting with that change. So,
You want me to leave the change in there, Catherine, or take it out?
I think if we're clear on the amendments that were made today, we probably don't need it. We just note that they were amended today. So I think that's essentially the resolution that we have on the table now. And I suppose since board member Martin is the one presiding, probably he should sign it rather than Chair Dobbenberger at the end. So that would be how I would write the resolution. I would ask the board. And I believe the board just moved, but there it is written out if that's helpful for all of you.
Okay.
That is exactly what I was saying when I made the motion.
Okay, good, great.
Okay, so I should have done that in the other order, but we do have a motion and a second now to adopt this resolution. I think we're ready to vote.
Okay. Commissioner Arnold,
Yes.
board member Bakken,
Yes.
board member Bauer-Kemper,
Yes.
board member Brands,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham is not present. Chair Dobbenberger is not present. Commissioner Gronball,
Yes.
board member Hintz is not present. Chair Holman.
Aye.
Board member Katzenberger.
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler is not present. Vice Chair Martin.
Yes.
Commissioner Verlick is not present. Board member Nelson.
Yes.
Board member Peters, or Commissioner Peterson.
Yes.
Board
Yes.
member Smith. And Commissioner Stroman is not present. And again, that is 11. So the bylaws as amended are adopted. Wow. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And we have just one other item. A final item is a general public comment. Chance for members of the public to provide input to the board about any issues related to the board's purview or authority. If you have a question for the board or staff, I'll ask staff to note that and get back to you at a later time. And if other board members are interested in being involved in that follow-up, they can let us know. They can let me know. And so I guess I want to ask at this time if we have anyone, I think, first of all, in the room who wants to make a public comment. We can do that now. We have about 2 minutes per commenter. Any public commenters? Okay, anyone online who's interested in making a public comment on any item? Okay. We can give it just a minute in case anyone. Okay. Okay. I think that concludes our public comment period and our agenda for today. Any further business? We don't need a motion to adjourn, I believe, right? We're figuring this out.
Just the gavel.
Okay, well, thank you everyone so much. Great meeting, and we'll adjourn the meeting for today.